What's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, the 7th of July already. Had a couple of days break. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for joining us today here at Hamtopia. We are continuing on with the Reaper and the Scribe, chapter 66. Perusing the clothes at Wednesday's wardrobe, Atkinson pulled out an item that looked out of place in the shop. It was a lime green top made of a strange material with a flashing sign on the front. Tamara was engrossed in the shoe department when Wednesday, who was looking more spectacular than ever, her mohawk adorned with feathers and jewels, walked over to Atkinson. Her makeup was as dramatic as always. Her drawn eyebrows were far exaggerating her natural brow line, and under them was an explosion of color that greatly outstretched the edge of her eyes. Her jade green lips matched the beautiful color of her eyes. She wore a simple sheer crop top, which was displaying the outline of her breasts. A long black skirt shredded about the hem, so its appearance was that of being tattered, accompanied the daring top. The ensemble completed by a pair of 6-inch platform Demonia patent leather boots. She saw the confusion on his face. "Are you not a fan of cybergoth, sir?" "I have never heard of it," said Atkinson. "It isn't to everyone's taste," she said in her Southern American accent. "Indeed not." "You have a wonderful accent, my dear. From where do you hail?" "I do love how y'all talk. I'm from North Carolina, the deep south of America," she said with a smile. At this point, Tamara came over and placed 4 pairs of shoes on the counter. "I love your outfit you are wearing today. It's gorgeous." "Thank you. Everything I wear, I sell in the shop." "In that case, could I try that top you are wearing, please?" "Of course you can," said Wednesday, showing Tamara the rail in question. Tamara disappeared into the dressing room and reemerged wearing said item of clothing. "How do I look?" she asked Atkinson. "Wonderful. You must get that." Turning to Wednesday, she asked, "What do you think?" "I think you look delicious," she said with a smile. "It brings out your femininity. You are a very beautiful woman." "Thank you," said Tamara, as she gave Wednesday a seductive smile. The shopping continued over the next hour, and then they bid Wednesday goodbye and headed back to the office. Upon arriving, they found John Smith with a rather glum expression on his face. "Whatever is the matter with you, John?" asked Tamara. "I was all set to have lunch with Tom Harper, but he can't make it now because his workload for the day has just massively increased. From what I have heard, you're going to be a bit busy yourself." "Why?" said Smith. "The first lot of Dark Realm souls are ready for transference to the realm of nature." "I didn't know we were ready for that." "We aren't. It's a situation that cropped up just this morning. For the now, their cords will have to be tied off until we are ready." "Well, as I have no date now, and I think I know who to thank for that, I may as well get to it," said John, as he stood and bid the two of them good-bye. Upon entering the realm of death, the reaper saw the cords hanging down. The despair contained in each separate one could be felt, even in that most desolate of realms. As he walked up to the first one, he saw someone holding on to it and looked straight at him. "Now, how have you managed to get into here?" asked a bewildered John Smith. "I need to be the link between Atkinson, you, and nature, and I am here to tell you that you cannot begin until nature is ready and Atkinson is fully in administration," said Paladin. "So, you are going to take part in this?" "It would seem so," he said in a soft voice. "In that case, I will go back," said the reaper. Paladin just smiled and nodded. Back in the office, Tamara and Atkinson were sitting on the couch, going through their acquisitions, when John Smith opened the great door at the back. "My word, that was fast, Smith," observed Atkinson. "I've just had an interesting conversation with Paladin," said Smith. "Where? You have just returned from the realm of death." "Indeed I have, but nevertheless I spoke to him in there. He said we cannot transfer these souls until you are fully in your administration." "How can he be in there when you are in attendance?" "Because I have the ability to be anywhere and everywhere," said Paladin as he joined them. "But worry not, I will not enter a realm without permission from you, Atkinson, in the future," he continued. Atkinson looked thoughtful and said, "This ability you have to be in the realm of death, even though you do not hold Reaper status, and the fact that you can join the Reaper, who is in administration in that very realm. Where did you obtain such power?" "Fear not, Atkinson. The permission or ability came from no one. It was all part of the prophecy. I am the one sent to assist or destroy the Reaper of the new age of humankind. With that in mind, I suppose you gave me the power." "Assist or destroy?" "Yes. This is not a regular occurrence. The prophecy told of you taking over from your father, but went no further than that. Until all the realms are brought together in harmony, I am, shall we say, your associate. I am an associate for the good, but executioner for the bad. There cannot be another like your father within our family. In that case, I look forward to your assistance and thank you for your timely intervention with my Reaper." "My pleasure," said Paladin, as he outstretched his hand in friendship. Atkinson took his hand, and the two extremely powerful forces' friendship was sealed. "How wonderful," said Smith. "Let's take tea." "By the gods, Smith, do you ever drink anything but tea?" said Atkinson. "No," he replied. Tamara giggled and said, "Tea it is, then." Far away from all of this, two young lovers were sunbathing on the white sandy beach that belonged to them alone. The sea was a turquoise mill pond, very inviting and warm. Upon the smooth rocks that punched through the turquoise, mermaids were inviting them to join in their play. The sky was pale blue, and the sun hung low on the horizon. Dixie took hold of Paul's hand, and the two ran towards the sea. As they entered the water, 4 mermaids dove in from the rocks. Dixie and Paul began to tread water as the 4 ocean angels popped their heads out of the sea, 2 of them taking Dixie's hands. The other 2 took hold of Paul's. Although quite small in stature, these 4 beautiful mermaids were very strong, as one of them lifted Dixie out of the water and twirled her around. Droplets of water dripped from her naked body, glowing like stars as the low sunlight turned each one into a cascading, falling jewel. She was joined by Paul as he too was lifted from the water and up to Dixie. Their bodies touched, and they kissed as the mermaids swam in a circle, gently turning the couple they held aloft. Very slowly, all 4 mermaids began to submerge. Dixie and Paul felt the water rise past their knees, and then their waists. Down, down they went, until the sky was no more, and they were in the domain of the sea folk. Again, 2 mermaids took a hand each of Dixie's, and the same with Paul, and in unison their tails swished up and down. The 2 terrestrial beings felt an incredible surge of power as they were propelled forward. They were going deeper and deeper into the abyss. The 4 sister mermaids made their way to a rendezvous point, followed by all kinds of sea creatures, most of whom had never seen the human form, and were very curious as to the sisters' new treasures. After a few short minutes, the mermaids, their guests, and the cortege of all manner of sea creatures arrived at their destination. To Johnson, it looked like they were entering a cave, but once inside, he soon realized it was an entire city, part of which he had seen before on his quest for Atkinson's body parts. A surreal, see-through wall now lay ahead of them as the mermaids let go of their hands and began to tread water on their side of the wall. Both Dixie and Paul gently pushed forward and passed through this bubble-like material into perfectly fresh air. Only now they realized, for the 5 minutes it took to arrive there, they had been breathing seawater. They began to hear normally again, the sounds in their ears muffled by the sea no more. Dixie and Paul began to look around this undersea crystal kingdom. The colors were of spectacular hues. Buildings made from crystals and humanoid creatures that seemed to be unaware of their presence were all around them. It wasn't too long before their presence was noticed as a rather gray-looking being walked up to them. He turned sideways and lifted his right arm in a welcoming, come-this-way fashion. Dixie and Paul lowered their heads slightly to acknowledge the being's actions and walked past. The fact that they were naked didn't affect them, as all the beings around them were naked too. Anatomically, the gray-looking beings were similar to Dixie and Paul. The females had the same genitalia and breasts, and the males possessed the same genitalia as human men. The main difference was the pigmentation of their skin. Johnson put that down to the artificial light, but he was wrong. An official-looking being came towards the terrestrial couple. He looked official because from amongst a party of about 50 beings who were greeting them into their kingdom, he was the only one wearing clothes. "Welcome, my friends. It has been many millions of years since we have interacted with humans," he said. "We are not exactly human, but thank you for your kind welcome," said Dixie. "Our home is your home while you stay with us. We can fulfill your every need. Do you require sustenance?" "No, thank you. We have eaten already," said Johnson. "Then I shall lead you to your room." "Our room?" said Johnson. "The one to restore the sea to its former state of grace is to be conceived in the sea," was the answer. Paul looked at Dixie, slightly puzzled, but followed the very polite official with her. Above the ocean and on dry land, Atkinson and Paladin had returned to the other realm to discuss what was about to unfold. Tamara was writing out that night's list, and John Smith was hoping Tom Harper could soon get through his backlog of work. Tom Harper and Sarah were busy confirming that the cross-section of bodies delivered to the mortuary had all died of drowning, with no other sign of injuries apart from minor abrasions caused by the falls. Detective Superintendent Victoria Mallock sat at her desk, trying to think of two things at once. The more she thought about it, the more she realized the two things were connected. The way Crawshaw dealt with the police at the station, and the hold he seemed to have over her and the police officers, was making her place the two things together. "I want the search for Crawshaw increased. You might want to start by rounding up all the vagrants you can find. I saw one walk away from the bridge," she said to an assembled group of senior police officers. "All our available officers are working on the bridge case," said one detective sergeant. "Yes, I know. I want that wrapped up for now. The coroner's office has said mass suicide. Get the river cleaned up and the helicopter removal arranged, and we can return to that once we have Crawshaw in custody. Now let's make this happen fast. I have a bad feeling about this whole thing." The meeting broke up and Victoria returned to her office. Picking up the phone, she rang the number Linda Harper had given her the night before. "Hi, Linda. It's Vic." "Hello. I was just thinking about you," answered Linda. "I was just wondering, do you fancy coming round to mine tonight?" "I'd love to." "That's settled then. I will pick you up when I finish work. In the meantime, are you free in about an hour?" "Yes, I'm just tidying my apartment." "Can we have a working lunch? There are some things that I need to know about Crawshaw, and I don't want to spoil tonight with talk of work." "That's fine with me." "Great. I'll pick you up in an hour." "I will be ready," said Linda as she put the phone down. As things progressed on land, they got even better under the sea, for Dixie and Paul were now in their room. Although the walls were crystal clear, there was perfect seclusion because everyone had retreated to give the couple the privacy they deserved. "What is going on?" asked Paul Johnson. "I don't know, but this is a bedroom, and we are on holiday and quite naked," answered Dixie with a smile. "Yes, but all this glass. I wish it was frosted." The very instant the words left his lips, the glass turned opaque. The couple looked at each other in amazement as Dixie said, "We'd better be careful what we say." They both burst out in laughter. Paul picked Dixie up and walked over to the luxurious bed adorned with soft cushions and rose petals. The bed was huge and very inviting. As they lay down upon it, soft music could be heard, setting an ambiance for love. The mattress was water-filled. It was warm, and its movements lavished all kinds of sensual motions upon them, its gentle response exaggerating every move they made. "So, what now, Mr. Johnson?" "Now, Miss Dixie, we enjoy paradise and all of its forbidden fruits." "I don't think anything is forbidden here," replied Dixie. "Life is good," said Johnson. Upon terra firma, Victoria Mallock pulled up outside of Linda Harper's apartment and tooted her horn. Almost instantly, her lunch date appeared at the door and ran down the steps to the car. Leaning in, she gave Victoria a kiss and said, "Hi." The two girls drove off to a nearby Italian restaurant. The restaurant was famous for its wonderful, authentic food. Oh, I loved her. And even more so for its singing owner. That day, the owner, who was past retirement age, was in good form and greeted the two ladies in Italian with her customary smile. Victoria and Linda ordered a large mushroom pizza, which they shared, and 2 side salads. A bottle of white wine finished their order. "This is the first time I've been here," remarked Linda. "I love this place. While we wait for our food, let's get the business out of the way. For instance, Would you have thought Crawshaw would turn against and kill his fellow officers? I had him as a male chauvinistic pig, but not a murderer, said Linda. What was he like in day-to-day work? He worked alone, mostly. He had a bad attitude for sure. But to me, he just seemed the same confused woman-fearer that all male chauvinists are, until I saw him drag Sergeant Simpson over the front desk. I thought of him as a mammy's boy, but that changed. It was like he'd taken things a stage further, or was possessed or something. He has been in the police force for 15 years, and his rise through the ranks was not a glowing one. I pulled his file today, and it did make for some very interesting reading. There were many complaints, but no real action taken. It seems he knows people in high places, but nothing within the file showed he had such a flaw in his personality. The pizza and salad arrived, and the two girls tucked in. Talk of work was replaced with discussion of the previous night and the night to come. Then the conversation changed to siblings, and in particular, Linda's brother. How old were you when you discovered you and your brother were gay? Asked Victoria. I think we were both quite young. We were very close, as there are only 18 months between us in age. We shared a lot of the same interests. I've never been a dominant female type, and I remained quite feminine throughout my early teens. Tom would play dress-up with me. I think we would have been 12 or 13 when we realized we were not the same as other kids. That being said, we didn't really know any other kids. What about you? What about me? Now, there's a story. I was very late in coming out. I say coming out because I am only out as far as a few personal friends are concerned. Your brother Tom, for instance. My job kinda gets in the way, if you know what I mean. I was silly enough to tell my parents. The result being I was homeless at 17 years of age, but not without money. My grandmother left me quite an inheritance in her will, so I took myself off to university and got a little apartment and kept my lesbian tendencies under wraps, just committing myself to work. I received the grades I went after and joined the police force, just like you, but I never told a soul. I tried the I will be a normal woman and get married, but it all came to a rather unfortunate end. I divorced several years back and put love and sex on the back burner. That is, until I was bundled into the back of a police car whose driver took my breath away. That day, I took the biggest gamble of my working life and asked her for a date. I think that brings us up to speed, said Victoria, looking straight at Linda. Linda took hold of both of Victoria Mallock's hands as a tear welled up in her eyes. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. It is how I feel. I know I'm older than you, but I think we would make a great couple," said Victoria. "We already do. I will keep your sexuality a secret. No one will hear anything at work from me. I have a feeling that won't be a problem for much longer. I feel like screaming your name out to the world. I feel alive again." "Oh, look at the time," said Linda. "Good Lord, we've gone on a bit, haven't we? I'll take you back home." "No need. I'm taking Tom some lunch for a catch-up while I'm here," said Linda, holding a little plastic bag aloft. "In that case, it's back to the grindstone for me," said Victoria, as she leaned over the table and kissed Linda. "Text me your address, and I will make my own way over to yours this evening," said Linda as Vic left. The owner of the restaurant shouted, "Arrivederci, bella signora!" Linda just sat there smiling, with a wonderful, warm feeling all over. She picked up her bag and took out her purse, but the owner told her that her friend had paid. Linda just smiled and thanked the wonderful elderly lady who shared the same parting gesture as the one she had when Victoria left. When Linda Harper arrived at the hospital, she made her way to the pathology department. She passed the laboratory and saw someone she knew through the window. On the other side of the pane of glass, Mike O'Sullivan, a lab tech, saw his friend and waved, saying, "Tom is in Gavin Jackson's office." She smiled and thanked him, and Mike returned back to his blood tests. As she arrived in the mortuary, her gaze was taken towards the examination table and to the young lady cleaning it, with no real attempt at modesty. Linda smiled and said, "Hello, you must be Sarah." "I must be, because that's what it says on the badge on my white coat." You don't appear to be wearing a white coat." Sarah giggled and said, "You sound like my grumpy old boss." "That's because he is my grumpy old brother. I thought Mr. Jackson was your boss." "He is as well. We are a tribe of 3, and there are 2 chiefs and only 1 little Indian." "That may be, but you are a very pretty little Indian." Sarah smiled and was about to say something when Tom, having seen his sister arrive, came to her rescue. Run along now, you horrible little thing. Quickly, Linda, come away while you still have your sanity." Sarah stuck her tongue out at him and leaned back over the table to carry on her cleaning. "Sarah, where is your lab coat? It has blood all over it. Oh, my God. Good grief. Make yourself useful and—" "I know. Make tea," she interrupted. As Sarah left to go to the canteen, Linda asked, "Is she always like this?" "It's because it needs feeding," replied Tom. "Tom?" "Yep, that's true. I haven't had any dinner, and it's nearly 2:00, came a voice from the adjacent room. "Lunch? You haven't had any lunch, Sarah." "Whatever you posh people call it, I haven't had any." "We can eat soon," said Tom as he led his sister into Gavin Jackson's office. "To what do I owe this wonderful pleasure? Nothing wrong, I hope." "Anything but. Tom, I've met someone." "Ooh, who is she? Do tell." Her name is Victoria, and you already know her. Vic? Sorry. Victoria Malik. The very same. Whoa! I thought she kept that sort of thing separate from her work, for obvious reasons. Yeah, she does, just like me. How long have you two known each other? I know her from working here, obviously, but we struck up a friendship quite a long time ago. In fact, she is one of my few true friends, said Tom. If we get close, that won't bother you, will it? Your news doesn't bother me at all. I couldn't hope for a better partner for you. With that in mind, I believe that I have some news for you. Do tell, said Linda. I've met someone, too. Who is he? What does he do? His name is John, and he is an accountant. Snore. Actually, he is quite an exciting guy. Is he? John the accountant sounds a bit vague. What's his name? His name is John Smith, and he works for Atkinson, Dewhirst, and Smith? Interrupted Linda. How do you know that? One of our old CID guys now works for them. Ah, yes, Paul Johnson. He's a friend of Gavin's. This all sounds very nice, but I have to pamper myself now, so I am ravishing for Victoria. You're such a whore. I know, darling. Do enjoy yourself adding and subtracting with the exciting Mr. Smith. Try not to get hot and bothered at the thought of his ledger. I will, thank you. Don't let the detective superintendent frisk you too vigorously. Handcuffs leave marks, you know. Mine don't. They are fern-lined, sweetie. And you, a police officer, get out of my office, you tart! With that, Linda gave her brother a kiss and turned just as Sarah was doing her door-opening routine. Linda watched the show, smiled, and said, today is such a wonderful day. As she left the office, she gave Sarah a little tap on her bum. See you later, Sarah, she said as she left. Sarah looked at Tom and said, So, the sight of my bum does nothing for you, but your sister likes it. Pretty much, answered Tom. Your entire family is strange. What about this tea? Why don't we get our sandwiches out and have lunch? Yeah, I'm starving, enthused Sarah. Back at the offices of Atkinson, Dewhirst, and Smith, John Smith was looking thoughtful and tapping his pen on his desk. He looked at Tamara as she was writing out that night's list and said, When this is over, I wonder if Atkinson will stay on for a couple of days. Why? Asked Tamara. I wouldn't mind going where Paul and Dixie are for a couple of days with, with Tom Harper. Well, yes. And how would you explain the two of you arriving at a South Pacific-type destination with nothing but elementals waiting on you hand and foot, and an island, I might add, that doesn't have an airport, a seaport, or any means of traveling to one? Point taken. You could, however, take said boyfriend on a holiday by the usual means of travel. Do you think Atkinson will go for it? Does she think Atkinson will go for what? Asked Atkinson. Where did you come from? Asked Tamara. I was just chatting with Paladin. It sounds as if I timed my entrance perfectly. So, Mr. Smith, ask your question, old boy. It'll keep, said Smith. For heaven's sake! When all this is over, he wants to take his friend away for a couple of days, said Tamara. My dear fellow, if all this goes our way, you can have anything you desire. As for you, Tamara, is your list finished? Why, yes, sir, it is. In that case, may I take you for a drink? You most certainly can. See you later, Smith, said Atkinson. Tamara blew John a kiss and said, Bye, John. John Smith just sat back in his chair and began to plan the first holiday he had had in, well, ever. Gavin Jackson lay in his coma in the other realm, totally oblivious to what was going on, when his hand began to twitch. In a derelict building just outside the city center, Crawshaw released 12 souls from within. He had a mind fix on Jackson and dispatched his devotees psychically to the position where he lay. Once they had found where he was being held, they were to take over his body and to bring him back. It wasn't easy getting into the other realm, but make it they did. As soon as they arrived at the chamber, they saw Jackson at the far end, but in between stood Dewhirst in full armor. On the plane of existence, Sarah drew a sharp intake of breath and dropped a tray of instruments on the floor. She instantly changed into warrior mode and disappeared. Tom Harper came out of the office to find the instruments and tray on the floor and no Sarah. Sarah materialized in the other realm, instantly tearing into the souls from the dark realm. Before any could get to her husband, she had freed them from their tormented existence. "Hello, Sarah," said Dewhirst. "No one gets to my husband." "That is why I am here. I trust no one saw you disappear." Sarah just shook her head as she inspected the carnage that had just taken place. "You are aware we need these souls?" Sarah just looked at him and nodded. Dewhirst noticed the power in which she had dispatched these once powerful entities. Her muscle structure was quite pronounced as she stood there, her mighty broadsword in her hand. "Crawshaw has found his whereabouts, so we must be on guard," she said. "Tomorrow it begins, as Atkinson starts his administration properly," said Dewhirst. "Tonight I stay with him. Nothing will get through." After what seemed a very long day, Detective Superintendent Malik left her desk to make her way home. On the way, she picked up a bunch of flowers and the ingredients for the evening's meal. Her head was full of the approaching night with Linda Harper. As she pulled into her driveway, she couldn't help but smile. Maybe it would halt further advancement, but she had decided that she was going to hide no more. Something was stirring deep within her, and she wanted to shout it out to the world. She wanted to walk down the main street of town, holding hands with Linda. Oh, yes, now was the time. The closet had become a cold and lonely place. This was the 21st century, so no more pretense. She had a feeling of euphoria as she made her way up to the bathroom, casually throwing her workday clothes into the nearby washing basket. She stepped into the shower and washed away the day's blues. As she felt the bubbles caress her skin, she was glad she had a large shower cubicle, the kind that easily holds two people. Her mind drifted to showering moments to come. She even dared, for the first time, to hope for love. Stepping out of the shower, she slipped into a dressing gown and wrapped a towel around her hair as she made her way back downstairs to the kitchen. Her kitchen was small, but expertly designed around her needs. Everything was at hand as she took the 2 ribeye steaks from the fridge. After seasoning them, she placed them on the grill pan. She then tossed a salad. The meat was cooking nicely, and the salad, with French dressing, was finished and placed back in the fridge. Victoria poured herself a glass of wine, leaving the kitchen and placing a CD in her music player. The CD in question was Some Girls Wander by Mistake, and it just took the edge of the quietness away. The doorbell rang, and she realized that she hadn't dressed yet. She opened the door, and standing there was a vision of beauty. Linda Harper had tied her hair up. Her dark shadowed eyes with black liner caught Victoria's gaze. She was wearing a nose ring, and her lips were luscious, pale in color. Her necklace was a dog collar with studs adorning its length. Her black mesh top hid nothing of what lay underneath. The tightest of skinny fit PVC trousers revealed a pair of legs a catwalk model would be proud of. And to finish the look, a pair of very high-heeled black stiletto shoes. Victoria's mouth hung open as she gazed at her. Linda asked, "Am I too early?" Victoria stared at her and said, "I'm not ready." "You look ready to me," she said, taking hold of the dressing gown and pulling it apart. The gown dropped to the floor, and Victoria, apart from the towel on her head, stood naked in the hall, with the front door still open. Linda placed her foot at the bottom of the door and slammed it closed. Victoria threw her arms around Linda as she tingled with excitement. In a lover's clinch, the towel fell from her hair. Linda began to kiss her neck, and then her lips. The spontaneous situation Victoria found herself in was the first time anything like this had ever happened to her. Her body was in a frenzy of excitement, and her mind was racing. The kiss seemed to last forever, and the situation was clearly as exciting to Linda as the mesh top could not restrain the extensions of pleasure showing from beneath. This love tussle found its way into the living room, where Linda placed Victoria on the couch. After spending much of her adult life ordering people around, this was a new and invigorating feeling. The helplessness and adoration of this strong lady that was undressing in front of her was overwhelming. She was tingling with excitement that grew with each item of clothing her lover removed. After her outer clothing had been stripped, Linda Harper stood in front of Victoria in a simple pair of white lace knickers. As she took a step closer, she offered her mate the privilege of removing the piece of beautiful lingerie. Victoria placed a forefinger and thumb on Linda's underwear and ever so gently pulled them down her legs, her gaze not moving from her lover's eyes. If she had dared to glimpse at the expertly cultivated area of Linda's womanhood, she believed in that exact moment she would explode uncontrollably. So there she was. This wasn't like the previous night, when two very nervous women had finally gone to bed without either removing their glance from the floor. This was pure, unadulterated lust, powerful lust that needed sustenance, and these two ladies were going to take it to the max. For Linda Harper, this was the first time in her life that she had taken control of a situation like this. Normally, it would have been the other way around, but the passion of the moment, as she saw Victoria in her dressing gown, had taken control of her. The love-making was also different to the previous night, as the night before had been confined to slight touching, gentle caressing, and fondling. They found themselves on this night in the throes of wanton lust and desire. Many pent-up emotions were released that night, a night of change for both women, and the night was young. As for dinner, well, it could wait.